Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for Politically Incorrect Knitters. I'm Deplorable Knitter, and I'm joined as always by our fabulous and wonderful Pinkava.
Hello.
Hello. And today we have some knitting. Anne has a finished item to show us, which is exciting.
Whoa.
I have a new pattern in the works, and there's a lot of news everywhere this week. So why don't you start off? Show us what you have.
British news in particular. So we might have
yeah.
Things are getting
Anne
hot.
She has been in her element this week with everything that's been happening, let me tell you.
I have been. It's been one thing after another and big news story after big news story. I mean, well, tell you in a second, but might have needed a sedative at one point. I didn't take one, but
but it wouldn't have been terrible to have.
Right. Anyways, so what I was working, let's see, let me grab, because last week I showed that I was starting on the Reclaim Party logo. So I have a finished hat. Ta-da!
Oh, I love it. I really love that. When you were doing it on your swatch, I didn't realize that the R was gonna on purpose come out of the other color. Like I just thought you had it off center on your swatch, but it's really cool the way it is.
Right. And especially since the original, I gotta get that even. The original logo by Juliet or Juliet, which I'm just a Midwestern peasant, so Juliet for me. Fogra, she did the original logo, and I think I said last week that she's done the illustrations for Jordan Peterson's latest book. So, anyways, that the original, I guess you wouldn't call it concept art, but basically when they had a previous Reclaim Party logo and then they launched a new one, and it was Lawrence Fox. It was a black and white photo, and it was gray, and there was like different sections. So I really liked the idea of the variegated gray yarn and the sort of white popping out of it. And they changed the logo on the website now has like this portion's red and that's blue, which I don't really like as a design element, but it's not my logo, so that doesn't matter. But yeah, also I gotta say, getting the particular little swoop is not easy in knitting. Like that whole curve thing when it comes to knitted stitches, which are square but not really, that's a pain in the butt. But we got there, and that's the entire point.
Yep, and it looks awesome. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Very nice job.
Yeah, I only have that, and I've said before that I do all of my little squares and I keep them to knit into a blanket later, so I have a lot of material.
Oh my gosh, look at you and all those R's.
I know, and well, when I do something like this, what I'll often do is I will, like, there's a lot of R's here, but the third from the top is actually the winner. But once I'm like, okay, I think this is good, then I'll be like, oh, but is it better if I change this slightly or if I change this slightly? And then I'm like, no, I can go back. I had it right. So yes, it is absolutely, positively the finished product. I never have to think about it again. We're done.
You are too funny. I don't have that problem with my knitting. I'm generally like, it looks pretty good on the chart. I'm sure it'll knit up fine. And it usually does, and I move on, but
right. Well, and then part of this is that I do have the go-ahead, or it sounds like I have the go-ahead to go ahead and make the sort of Reclaim Party hat pattern. So I'm really, really excited about that. But now the obsession stops from, do I have the logo right, to, is the hat pattern right? Because yes, it is, it's just a ribbed pattern beanie, but I have to make sure that my intarsia directions are good, which hangs me up every single time. I have such a problem with that. But also this hat, it's fingering weight yarn, but on size 3 needles, which I think I probably think it's looser than it really is because you can't see my hand through it. I should just let it go. I should let this be the pattern and stop there, and it's fine, and let it, go and do it. But then I also took the same thing and doubled up my yarn and started another one. So
I was going to say, you should do all those things, but since it's you, we know that you are working on another one, and there you are working on another.
yeah, and I'll have a small stack by the end of the week, and then I'll decide that my first pattern really was the best, and we'll go from there.
That's really too funny. I just dropped a stitch.
No.
Because somehow between when I was working on my pattern last night and today when I picked it back up, I have lost my cable needle. So I'm using a double point, which is fine, but it just tends to be a little bit unwieldy, because it's extra long. And so, and I gave my other cable needles are like stitch markers. When I don't need them, I can find 6 of them. The minute I need one, there's not a thing. Like I should just use a toothpick or
Right.
Oh my gosh, right? So did you have other news before I interrupted you?
No, I've just been sitting here in a pile of gray yarn, wondering which needle size is correct. So technical details, not fun ones.
Yeah, I sometimes I get hung up on that. This pattern, let me just finish my cable here. So this pattern was when I was working on November before the Stop the Steal thing happened. It's a cable pat. It's in this gray yarn. I cannot remember who it's from, but I have the label somewhere. There's a double cable here that is different than on the sides. But this one had actually started on size 5 needles, and this is DK yarn. And my mom started knitting it up in a different color DK yarn. And my mom is a super loose knitter compared to me, and she was using like size 4 needles, and it was so loose and open. And I'm like, I think I need to start mine over because it's too compact. It's too much. And so I took it all out and I started over on 7s, and I really like it much better because it was nice. It was still nice, but it was just, it was almost like the needles were too small for the yarn. Right. I tend to knit really tight anyway, so you put DK weight yarn on smaller needles and it gets really, I don't know, scrunched up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't necessarily explain that properly, but I feel like knitters will understand, so it's okay.
Right, where it gets to the point that it's difficult to physically pull the yarn through the stitch.
Yeah, it's really hard to cable because it's so tight, but I'm like, what was I thinking when I started this? But I'm really pleased with this, and I am still working on my color work pattern, the one that I've been talking about that I've been using Chicken Lady Fiber Arts yarn on. So I'm still working on this pattern. This is Chicken Lady Fiber Arts yarn, totally tubular, purple that I still have not remembered to find the name for. And this is this purple on this hat is hers. It's deep iris, which is just beautiful, so gorgeous. And but it's this hat that I've been making. As you can see, there are several of them, and it's still coming out, but it got bumped to April because I don't want to release this hat pattern until I figured out the mitts and the cowl, which are giving me a little bit of trouble. And so this cable pattern has been on the back burner for a while. I've had it mocked up for almost 2 years. I just haven't gotten to the end of it yet. Like there's a baby size hat that's knit to like it needs crown decreases, and I just never did it.
Never had that happen to me before. I don't know what you're talking about.
Other knitters have never done this. I know. I'm the only one, right?
It's just a you problem.
But so because of that, this is going to be my March pattern. And I may do fingerless mitts with it. We will see how crazy I feel like getting after the hat is done. But this is going to be March pattern. This guy got bumped to April just in case people have been looking for this one, because I'm still I look at the mitts, I talk about the mitts, I show them to people, and then I put them down because I still don't know what I want to do for the color work on the thumb. So, right. And it sounds weird and whatever, but yeah, that's what I'm hung up on. So yep. It'll get done. But also my husband and I are going out of town for a few days next week, and because of that, I don't want to have a pattern that is going to need a ton of interaction from me with my testers.
Right.
I mean, obviously I'll be interacting with them, but I feel like the color work one would be maybe more intense, whereas this one is going to be charted, it's going to be written, it's going to be really pretty straightforward. So I feel pretty good about that. But
right. The
we'll
cables are cables, and there's no gussets or anything to worry about.
Right. So that's the deal with my patterns. And I was totally gonna. Oh, so yesterday I got to speak with the fact checker from the New York Times. No, not the New York Times, from the New Yorker.
Okay.
The article that they are writing that I am going to be part of is coming out on March 22nd, and it will only be in print. So I have to figure out where around me sells the New Yorker, because I live in a small town. I'm pretty sure that the places around here aren't like, oh, New Yorker.
Right.
I might have to go to the city for that, but I will, because I will own that forever. Even if they totally butchered me and said awful things about me, I will still be like, hey, can tell my kids when they're older, look at your mom was totally lambasted. No.
Well, I always like to quote the P.T. Barnum thing, like, I don't care what they say about me in the press as long as you spell my name right.
Right, exactly. And the fact checker was super nice, and I've been interviewed for other stories before, but I guess the publications haven't been on the scale, because that's never happened where and she's like reading quotes back to me, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds like something I would say. Like, I don't remember if that's exactly what I said, but it was interesting. And it's kind of neat how this knitting thing has gotten me these experiences that I wouldn't expect. You know what I mean? Like, Grant Stinchfield just totally put up a picture of my shop on and talked about it for 3 minutes on his show. Like, when in my life did I ever think any of that would happen?
Right. I didn't think this would be so important.
Totally was talking to a New Yorker fact checker yesterday, because that's my life. So whatever.
Like, oh yeah, it was just me. That was just me talking to someone.
And I felt so bad. I totally flaked and forgot to call her, because she wanted me to call her at lunchtime.
Okay.
At lunchtime, I was making lunch for my family, and I just totally didn't even call her. I'm like, oh my God. Whoops.
Like, oh man, the whole conversation. Knitting, it's like this, it's almost perpetually, like, it's going to be a novelty story no matter what you do, because people are going to say, haha, knitters. It's like, no, this is being canceled and having stuff taken down from websites and this and that. It's like, no, this is a big thing.
It's weird too, because when I spoke with her, I didn't know what angle she was taking with the story. She's just talking to me about my experiences. I didn't know what her whole thing was, but I think it sounds like it might be centered on Ravelry, or maybe not centered on it, but that's certainly part of it. Mm-hmm. So I'm interested to read it. I hope she was nice. So that'd be good. We'll see.
Okay. I'm
not... and sorry, before I forget, she also interviewed Tabitha from Murder Knits after seeing her on our show. So I'm interested to see how that part went too. So anyway, yes, Anne, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
And I don't know if you want to include this or not, but I have this plan of, I'm not sure if I actually will, but of rebooting. I haven't touched my Ravelry account since the entire dust up with Trump supporters thing. It is just laid there dead. I haven't done it, nothing. I'm sick of these people. They're horrible. Goodbye. But I do like the idea of rebooting it and putting this reclaim pattern out on there and just seeing what happens. Because
will they know what it is?
I'm not sure if they'll know what it is. Because the people of Ravelry don't strike me as people who think through international issues, especially since they have a Trump ban specifically, and we're very multi-culti, but we don't really pay attention to what's going on in the rest of the world.
Right, but there are a lot of users from like England and other parts of the world, so they may raise the flag on it.
Maybe, but
But
interesting.
it's certainly not a Trump thing. It's certainly not,
Mhm.
yeah, that's something to mull over for sure.
I know it's curious, and also it's like you don't want to get in trouble just for the sake of getting in trouble. But when Ravelry first came out with its Trump ban, it said, "Oh, we're not banning conservatives. Oh, it's okay. You can still be a Republican and be on our platform." And it didn't take a week for them to lie about that and kick people off anyways. Even people who said that, "Hey, I'm not conservative at all. I don't agree with this ban." So it would be interesting to sort of make the point of it's something that, to the best of my knowledge, they don't have a rule about. And to be like, oh, and you'd ban this too, is sort of a, okay, so you don't have a rule about this. Are you going to say that you can't, support certain, I don't even know if you would consider the Reclaim Party to be conservative, but conservative-ish in the realm of conservatism. Definitely more conservative than the current Conservative Party, but
Right.
it's interesting.
It is interesting.
A good object lesson. Toby Young of the Free Speech Union may have a heyday. Not that I want to give any more work to Toby. He's doing an excellent, excellent job.
It's all very interesting, man.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to discuss it with you further. We can make a pro and con list offline.
That's right.
But, not that we're ever not online together. Never mind. Off podcast.
Off podcast.
There was something going on in the knitting community I wanted to talk about. I saw this post this week about people, how sick they are of yarn snobbery. Mm-hmm. And I just find it amusing because, so when I started designing, and I've brought this up before, but it just kills me because when I started designing, everybody was going, oh my God, look at her. She is using acrylic yarn. Can you believe that she is using red heart to make her patterns? Blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. I get into indie dye yarn and people are like, oh, look at that. She's using superwash and non-superwash together. Can you believe her? Oh my God. And then now they're like it's a whole social justice thing. Like you should never shame somebody based on their yarn choices and their budget and their, apparently you should never shame somebody who is a liberal also. If they are a conservative, please feel free to mock anything they do with yarn. It's totally fair game.
And also, let's take whatever position allows you to like put yourself higher than anyone else for yarn snobbery or against it. I think that's the best way.
Well, the thing in the post was very like, oh, there's yarn snobbery both ways. And it might have been KDB actually. I'll look and I'll put the screenshot of it's a long thing. I'll put it up though, about how, people who say, I don't understand why you would spend so much on yarn shouldn't say that, and how people who spend a lot on yarn shouldn't make judgments on anybody who doesn't. And like, it's very nonsense, but it kills me because I got mocked mercilessly for my yarn choice in the beginning of my design career. And it's just ridiculous. And when part of the reason that I design with more wool now is because I know more yarn dyers. And so even though my yarn budget hasn't gotten any bigger, I am choosing to spend it differently because now I know these people.
Right.
And so I love Kia from Cedar Hill Yarns. I loved working with her yarn. I love Chicken Lady. I haven't tried some of the other designers we've had on, but it just kills me. So anyway, that's my the end of my yarn rant. It kills me. Social justice, they have to be better than the rest of us.
No, and it's well, I'll refrain from saying what it is, but there's also a certain amount. I follow some historical costuming people, and which I love historical costumes, so it's very interesting. And a lot of them are very liberal, which doesn't surprise me. But it's the swing back and forth of, they'll say gatekeeping, that people are gatekeeping and saying, basically you can't play with us unless your stuff is totally and absolutely historically accurate. Or on the other hand, well, we should let everybody in. Oh, but you're using non-natural fibers. So this week, it's that you shouldn't tell people that their stuff isn't historically accurate because you're not using totally natural fibers. When, again, you could look a couple months back with some people talking about the importance of not handmade, sustainable, I would say, fabrics, and not using, a lot of stuff with different acrylic and plastic content because of what it does for the environment. Like, okay, it's like I get both sides of the argument, but you're not being less shamey now that you're telling people that it doesn't matter what they use. You can still sit with us, but I'm still shaming you for having, like, there's no level of, oh, by the way, we're, it's like,
I feel like
you're saying you're inclusive, but you're not sounding inclusive. And like, I want everybody to play happily together, and I would hope that I am encouraging that. But I want everybody to come. I want everyone to come into the knitting community or whatever crafting community you have at whatever skill set, using whatever materials, and we can all play together. It's like you're saying that other people are shaming you, and therefore you are shaming them, and you're not helping the problem. You're not. Some people are jerks, I get it, but you're not like, now everyone's going around the circle and showing pictures of different acrylic, non-natural fiber historical garments that they have as a part of their wardrobe. And I don't know how that was less virtue signally than when you're like, oh, and this is all organic linen. Like,
okay, so I get totally what you're saying, but I feel like if there is a place to be like, no, that's not historically accurate, it would be in the historical costuming society, where like, well, if they didn't have polyester to work with and your garment therefore cannot be accurate. Like it's nothing against you. It's not historically
right. Well, and part of it too is that, I mean, the whole fabric industry, the whole textile industry in America is so poor right now. It's really expensive, and especially if you're just starting to sew. If you're just starting to sew, you do not want to be cutting into, a $10 a yard fabric, much less a 20 or 30. You're not. Mm-hmm. You're just starting out, and you made it yourself. Good for you. People should make things.
I absolutely agree with that, but I'm just saying that unlike the knitting community, that's a place where you can actually say, well, in case anybody was wondering or concerned, there is still all kinds of snobbery going on in the knitting community. Oh, yeah. I don't think they've done much else lately. I think that's the biggest thing I've seen, and I've seen that a lot the past few days, and next week it'll be something new. So this week, before Anne gets into all things England,
there's so much England right now.
I wanted to mention that my illustrious governor, my fearless leader, now has 6 allegations against him for sexual assault or misconduct, or whatever the correct term is for it. But he now has 6 accusers. But what I have noticed is, one, he is refusing to step down or resign or anything. The Attorney General is looking into all of these allegations. But since this has started, want to know how much I've heard about nursing homes?
Not a lot.
Nope, it's about 0. So there you go. There you go. In case anybody was wondering, I'm not saying that the accusations aren't real, but I'm saying that, hey, isn't it funny how nobody's talking about this other thing anymore?
Yeah, all of the people who died in nursing homes, kind of a big deal.
Apparently not. So anyway, that's what I know about that.
Yeah, that's depressing. And with so many other things too, I don't think we intend to stop on this link, but I've been watching British news the whole week, and Mark Stein did a quick little article about it, and he said things to obsess about as the world burns, or before we get nuked, or before the Chinese send an EMP. We can talk about and this week, looking at all the other stuff. Oh, and the House passed a bill to limit gun sales. That's not good. That's they coming for, it sounds
private guns.
They're
private
coming
guns
for our Second Amendment rights. Yeah, they're coming for our Second Amendment rights. That's
no,
what's literally
they really they really are. They are no longer allowing private gun sales.
Mhm.
If you cannot have an FBI background check, then it is not a legal gun sale. So
Yeah.
anybody who said, oh no, we don't really want your guns, we just don't want the bad guys to have them. No, they're making it so that the bad guys will get them because they don't care about the laws and the rest of us are screwed. So
Right. And with so many things in society, it's another step. It's another bureaucratic step. And by the way, if the FBI just decides like, oh man, we're so busy with these background checks, you will literally never get one. Well, then they just essentially or effectively stopped gun sales at all. You can do that incredibly easy and just be like, oh, well, we'll get back to you. Oh, is that late? Oh, so sorry.
It's sad but true.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, I mean, sorry, I got that news this morning. It just totally killed my buzz for everything else I'm excited for.
Well, I saw it this morning and I meant to write it down, but it's amazing that all the stuff that's going on now with Biden in charge. And I heard an interesting little piece that his aides are writing all of his executive orders, and all of his aides are like Obama era people that have been brought back. So
yikes.
Just more fun facts for us. So, got that.
Anyways,
let's talk about something more exciting, or maybe not exciting, because part of your news is it sad? Is it sad that Nigel isn't in charge anymore? Or is this good?
Ambivalent. I was sort of like, oh my goodness, Nigel. No, I think it's a good thing, but within the same day, Lawrence Fox of the Reclaim Party announced his candidacy for mayor. So that was really exciting. Which I have a couple other notes about that. But I'm like, wow, because in the previous weeks before, the only news from the Reclaim Party seems to be that there was a couple of interviews of the, Lawrence Fox, of course, but also Calvin Robinson and Emma Webb. And it's like, okay, so you guys are doing interviews, but I don't, what is the actual policy thing that is doing? The biggest change seems to be that you've introduced color to your website. So I'd like to, and not English, but I'm like, what's going on here? Where's the direction?
Right.
But anyway, so running against current London Mayor Sadiq Khan, who spends millions of pounds on BLM fireworks. So there's like actual fists painted in the air. Super classy. And
totally what money should be spent on too. I mean, forget all the stuff that's been going on, but let's make sure the fireworks have the
fist in the air.
Is it like, yeah,
it's a big old Tommy fist right there in the air. And all the social justice phrases that we can say, where knife crime is through the roof. And that's what happens when they're like, oh, ban all the guns, no one will shoot you up. Yeah, then you get stabbed. It's or worse, in Sweden, you get blown up. I mean, it's really a problem. But anyway, so attacking or getting crime solved, that would be good. Something about the criminal problem would be awesome. So anyways, Lawrence Fox's video came out saying reclaim your freedoms, that to end lockdowns first and foremost, to end any anti-free speech laws that they have. he came out with a video last night talking to Harry Miller. His organization is We Are Fair Cop. He is a previous policeman, and they said in the video, I wrote it down, since 2014, they have had 120,000 to 200,000 non-crime hate incidents, which means that somebody said something either in person or on Twitter, and the police have investigated them when actual crime has gone up. Because it's much easier to say, sir, I don't like the sound of your tweet, than it is to be like, hey, I think that guy might want to harm people. Maybe we should, it's, deal with actual crime and actual problems.
Well, it's kind of like the situation we have going on right now, where Joe Biden isn't saying anything mean, but he's ruining everything. So I guess it depends on what your priorities are, right?
Well, nothing mean unless he's talking about governors who don't want mask mandates, unless he's talking about our troops.
Well,
unless
okay,
unless he's talking about the Trump administration, unless
he is not putting out mean tweets. That's what I should have said.
Oh no,
he's not putting out mean tweets. So
it's better.
Our mental health is okay, and it doesn't matter what he's doing to the country. So
right. Which to segue into mental health with the Harry and Meghan situation, because they're saying Meghan made a lot of claims in her interview to Oprah, and one of them was that she was suicidal, which therefore makes anybody saying anything against her many claims, which were that they were married in secret 3 days before, which is not possible according to the way that Anglican churches have services. Things like they stole her passport when she went to like 14 countries, not quite sure the number, over 10 countries in the time period where she says the royal family took her passport, and all these other claims. But if you say, yeah, I really question what Meghan said in that interview, they're like, oh, well, you're against mental health because she said she was suicidal during this time. Like, I'm sorry, there's this there's in a business I frequent, there's this sign that is a domestic abuse shelter, and it says, these are the signs of abusive relationship, and it's hanging up in the bathroom, so you can sit there and read them all. And does your partner take money from you or ask you to take money from other people? Does he threaten you or your pets or your kids? And one of them is, does he threaten harm to, or does this person threaten harm to themselves or others? Because that is a textbook narcissistic tactic of not saying that if people are suicidal, you shouldn't try to help them and believe them, but that is a prime, oh, well, I'm going to do this to twist your arm so they don't harm themselves.
Yeah, well, while I'm pregnant, I was suicidal because the royal family was so bad. Okay, first off, I'm not saying that I know anything. From watching them in that situation, I would say if anyone is having an abusive relationship, she has got some sort of weird hold on Harry, not the other way around. I mean, a classic, my first marriage was kind of on the abusive side, and one of the first things they do is they try to make it so you're not around your own friends. You can only see people that they approve of. They try to keep you from seeing your family. They try to, and what's going on here? Well, yeah, I don't know. It just looks kind of fishy to me, the whole thing. And there's reports that she doesn't speak to a lot of people because she's like all mean and terrible to them. And so I don't know how much. I know we're supposed to believe women every time they say anything, but man, like, really?
And also, I'm gonna, it's been said many times before, but everybody is so mean and horrible to me. Millions of people just watched my wedding, all of those racists, and then it was so horrible, and the British press is terrible when they only began to say anything. Well, the British press is gonna say mean things about who they will, but any negative coverage that she got started when she started lecturing everybody on climate change and then would jet off to see Elton John. There's
But that doesn't matter because she is oppressed and they are racist and it's terrible. She's the victim and she never Googled her family. Although I gotta tell you, I'm not into England the way Anna is. Like, I know about stuff that's going on, but in like when Kate and William got married, I totally watched their wedding because she is so classic that you know, and I've been into them a little bit because I was pregnant with both of my kids when she was pregnant with her first two. And so I just kind of like, I was aware of what they were doing. I wasn't like one of those people, but anybody who has watched anything knows that there are like standards and rules and things that are expected of you if you're part of the royal family.
right.
Like, you would have to be under a rock to have no idea what's going on as far as that is. Do you know what I mean? Like, the women always wear dresses and heels and hats and like there's a certain persona that they put out there.
Right. That the idea that you could be introduced to or a part of the royal family and not have to have any foothold on what etiquette is expected of you is I don't believe it. Just there's pictures shared around like, oh well, I never Googled Harry, and then it's her copying all of Diana's outfits.
Right. Or there's the picture of her next to Wallace Simpson where she wore that black dress with the white flowers on it for her interview. And then there's a picture of Wallace Simpson who has got a black dress with white flowers on it. And their hair is styled similar and stuff.
Right,
like,
right. And it's very, I don't know, it's like bizarre Diana fantasies without the benefit of actually going out and hugging people with AIDS or actually like, you know, again, doing royal duties, you know, spending time with the public, because Meghan is very, don't let the public touch me. Don't you dare. She's not personable. She's not approachable. Not that I, you know, like from any sort of press view. Harry, I think I mentioned before that before he was married, he would do press tours and go to, you know, different Commonwealth countries. And after the press tour, he would sit down with the media guys and at a bar, buy them all their drinks for the night. And then they would talk about what went well and what didn't go well. And he'd pick up the tab at the end. And the press loved it and it got a lot of goodwill and they talked about things. And then, you know, he gets married and it's all, oh, the press is evil and the press never, well, you stopped having a relationship with them. And even if the relationship was bad, it's making an effort to try to make it good. That there was no, it was just, my wife is upset and I'm suing you now. There was no, let's try to work it out.
Yeah, and I am not saying that there are not issues in the royal family. I'm sure there are. There are issues in every family. Like, that's just life. But I just don't understand how somebody can get themselves into the situation where they're so surprised about all this stuff. And she says that a lot of racial things were said about her. Most people I've spoken to actually didn't even realize that she was Black until the interview. Right. So, I mean, maybe it was common knowledge in the castle and it was an issue, but the racism that she says that she got from like everywhere just seems, and let me just say, how privileged and rude and over the top was the whole thing of her whining at Oprah, a billionaire, in like the chateau garden. Like, people are waiting for their $1,400 from the government, and there you are wearing a $4,500 dress, telling everybody how you're a victim.
Exactly. Or worse, just outrageous. Part of that interview was inside their chicken shed where they had a bench. Okay, have you ever been around chickens? if you put a park bench in where the chickens live, the chickens will poop on said bench. It's not a nice place to sit. Unless, of course, you have a tarp thrown over it because you like to sit with chickens and you take that off. So if this, what sort of a world do you live in where you sit with chickens intentionally in their shed? Which is a thing with some people, but what, who was cleaning that bench? Not Harry. Like,
Yeah, and not her. And I think everything she said could be true. We don't know, whatever. I think that she's spoiled and that she's always kind of been entitled and that she is a money grubber. But that's my own personal view of her.
no,
But
she
I
hers
think
is
that
not
the
an
whole
up from nothing story.
no,
And that in
um,
that she's in a much higher position than she started, but she was never poor. She was never less than upper echelons.
right. But the thing about her and the whole interview with Oprah and the expensive clothes and the expensive setting and everything,
Oh yeah.
it's terribly.
Meghan spends so much more money on her clothes than like the rest of the royal family, Kate included. Kate will rewear something and look good the second time. Meghan doesn't do that.
Yeah, but my point about it is that it could all be true. But I think that them putting it out now, especially after people have been locked down for a year and people are struggling and stuff, it's just super tone deaf.
Oh yeah.
If you want people to feel bad for you, um, right now is certainly not the time. People have their own issues. People need money, they need jobs, they need to go to work. I don't want to listen to you whine about how poorly you were treated by the castle.
Yeah.
Freaking, I would go there in a heartbeat if I got invited. Like, come on.
I know.
Whatever.
Like, 2020 has been a hard year for everyone. And you know who has had it worse? The worst out of everyone? Meghan Markle. I think, wow, what a hero. And I also really love that thing that she does where she doesn't say that she might have even slightly been in the wrong ever. I think that's
Oh,
really
really?
brave.
I don't know. I just heard that people said that her interview was similar to her acting. Totally unbelievable. So I don't know.
Well, the best, I'm going to read out this quote because it is so good. It's from Brendan O'Neill from Spiked magazine. And again, he's an excellent writer. But nobody invades Meghan Markle's privacy as much as Meghan Markle does. The problem isn't us, the grubby tabloid reading public, pestering Harry and Meghan for info about their lives. The problem is them forever foisting their most intimate experiences down our throats. How about you leave us alone?
That is very true, though. You
Right,
know, they're so oppressed, but they're the ones out there.
Uh-huh.
They're the ones out there saying, "Hey, look at me, look at me."
We just want to be so private right now, so private. And also, I hire a professional photographer for all of our private moments.
Well, you know, I guess when you have the money, you might as well have a professional photographer because why not?
I don't know. But all of that being said, all that and Nigel, now that he is no longer leader of the Reform Party, which he says that he's getting out of politics and he's sort of going to be more on he's still going to campaign for things, but he's not going to be the political figurehead. Richard Tice is now in charge of the Reform Party, which Richard Tice is doing a lot of his press lately anyways, so that makes sense. Kind of a Sean Bean looking guy. So very, very professional, kind of businessman. He knows what he's doing. Anyways, so because Nigel's been all freed up, he's been doing the Harry and Meghan press tour because even when Brexit going on, he'd go to America and talk about this or that, and everyone would be like, "Oh, talk about Harry and Meghan." he points out that all these accusations of the royal family being racist, when the royal family are the figureheads of the Commonwealth, which is 2.3 billion people, and over half of those are Black and Asian, non-white. Let's just umbrella that. And the Queen has, a bigger Rolodex than anybody. It was Commonwealth Day recently, so they had a service. They didn't have anybody in the service. It was mostly a virtual thing. But there's the Queen, and they're talking about different excellent things around the Commonwealth. There was a Maui choir there. There was a guy talking about he had started an ambulance service in Bangladesh, and it was the royal family who was sitting there and listening to them and talking to them, and talking about mental health issues during the coronavirus and everything else. They were giving those people their full attention and helping the charities to do good things throughout the world. And Harry and Meghan were complaining about Harry's dad cutting off the checks. Like there's that there's a huge difference between the two mentalities of the two groups.
And then I just want to say there's one other thing that has not been touched on at all. And I just want to double check that I have the right guy. But Prince Andrew is known to be a good friend of Jeffrey Epstein, even after he got into trouble. But I love how it's kind of like Governor Cuomo.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, let's put these other things way up in the front so that people forget about this.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? There's real issues going on. There's real things that people should be concerned about, such as, the dude being like BFFs with Epstein. But
yeah,
I don't know. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, definitely. If you're going to do a tell-all interview, you probably should have mentioned Prince Andrew at some point. I mean, I would have. But
yeah, I don't know. But all of that, I just love how coronavirus has just swiped so many things that were gonna blow the lid off of things, and now nobody talks about them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So coronavirus has been used as a cover for a lot of stuff, but then like for somebody like Cuomo who mismanaged the coronavirus, they have a new scandal to be his cover.
Right. Well,
it's just fabulous.
In the future, all of our news will be clickbait. We'll just go shiny things to be distracted from the old one.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so you have more Nigel news?
Not terribly.
Well, you saying clickbait made me think of, I got a survey from Instagram, and I wasn't gonna take it, but I did. So guys, if you can't find me on Instagram, it's probably because I took the survey. But they wanted to know how I felt about the platform and if I felt safe on it, and if I felt included, and I said no, because they try to silence people who don't have the same political and social viewpoint as them. Uh-huh. So I don't know if that's going to actually go somewhere or not, but hey, it was good while it lasted.
Should be, guys.
So we'll see. But yeah, you talking about clickbait made me think of it.
Yeah, pretty much. And no, free speech is one of the biggest issues of our time on social media things. And just the amount of people who have been attacked for criticizing Meghan Markle, who is pretty incredible to separate the two phrases. She's that, the thing with Lawrence Fox and his Reclaim Party, it all started because he dared to question Meghan Markle and her.
I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah, definitely. And now Piers Morgan says that he doesn't he didn't believe her, and he was kicked off of Good Morning Britain because of it. And
he didn't believe her with the allegations that she put out against the family.
Right.
Okay.
That he said it wasn't believable. You know, diss the queen, why don't you? What a jerk. But anyways, so and Piers has issues of his own, certainly, when it comes to let's just say he's not necessarily a conservative guy, Mr. Piers. But that he has to toe the line when it comes to Meghan Markle, who is practically a Kardashian, and you can't say anything against her ever. It's a ridiculous thing to put forward that this is your only. Then there's some leader of BLM now who says to boycott the royal family because BLM has so much to do with the royal family now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the BLM wants them to boycott the royal family because they're still nuclear family, and that's unacceptable to them. But
and
I don't know why I would listen to them and their opinion of what that seems like they're not in their lane for that. I don't know.
Right. Well, and probably, the evils of colonialism, even though, England, okay, so India is free now, okay. And this country is free now, okay. And you're going to have your own government. Strikes me that if they were a little more colonialist, they wouldn't let people break off from their direct jurisdiction as much as they do. But,
Well, it only works if it fits the narrative, so whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow we had all of this British news to talk about, and somehow it turned into the Meghan Markle hour. So sorry.
Everything is the Meghan Markle hour. There is nothing else. I mean, I have a list here of the characteristics of the other conservative-ish candidates for London mayor. Is that important? No. Let's talk about Meghan Markle more. She's a pretty easy target.
I wouldn't call her a target. I'd call her
well,
charlatan. Maybe not charlatan. I'll come up with a good word for her. Give me a minute.
It's like how it's much easier to talk about how ridiculous it is to ban Dr. Seuss books than it is to talk about how in Canada it was recommended for parents to lock their 10-year-old kids in their room for 2 weeks if they had maybe been exposed to coronavirus, which luckily that one got turned around, but a lot of other really stupid things haven't. So, it's much easier to chat a bit about Pepe Le Pew than it is, Roderick.
So how do you feel about Pepe Le Pew? Do you think they were right in blocking him, or?
I think the entire joke of Pepe Le Pew is that, the skunk is all about the cat. The cat is not a skunk and not interested. And the entire joke is that Pepe should have picked up a couple of social cues that the cat's not into him. Like, that is the joke. Oh, it perpetuates rape culture. If you're laughing at the cartoon, you're laughing because the guy should know that she's not interested. That's the entire joke. But
yeah, the only thing I agree with about the whole Pepe Le Pew thing is that I saw a meme where they took off his head and it was Cuomo underneath. But other than that, yeah, I just seriously, I don't think that anybody watching him was like, hey, his approach is like the one I should take when I'm trying to pick up chicks, you know what I mean?
Yeah. God, and isn't part of the thing?
It was a joke.
It is a joke. Odious guys are funny.
Yeah, because they generally don't know how bad they are, which makes it a joke.
Right. And the fact that the skunk smells like a skunk, it's hilarious. Get the joke. But anyways, humor's illegal. You can't have fun.
Humor is.
You can't have real conversations.
Mm-hmm.
But
But we
hopefully
can still have conversations here, Anne. And really, that's what matters.
we can still have conversations here. Also, the importance of pushing back against all these things. I briefly mentioned the Canada thing, and that it was repealed, or they stopped the policy in Canada after Mark Stein and Andrew Lawton complained about it. And I think we're in sort of an interesting time where look, we have a lot of problems. The left, we have a lot of Democrats, they have Senate, they have House, they have the White House. There's a lot of issues with that, and those issues have been talked about before. But for example, Biden wanted to put in the $15 minimum wage. They might sneak that in anyways, but they took it out because people complained. Mr. Potato Head was now Potato Head, but it's back to Mr. Potato Head because people complained. And I don't think, even though it's a struggle back and forth, but don't discount your ability to raise a flag, say, hey, there's a problem here, and to push back against it. And I think it's incredibly important. And, to not just hold ground, but to advance ground. Hold ground in that you don't move on your principles, but advance ground to say, hey, I don't think this is right. Hey, we shouldn't do this. Hey, I think, a lot of people would be against this if they knew what was going on, depending on whatever your thing is. Don't think that you're the only guy sitting in the back corner and that nobody's going to agree with you, because there's probably somebody else in the room who's like, I'm having an issue with this too, but I'm not sure I want to speak up. So go ahead and be the guy who speaks up. And good times.
That is excellent advice, as always, Anne. I guess on that note, we're going to go. Oh, but I do want to tell everybody, next week, when Anne and I usually tape, I will be in the Sunshine State. So I'm not sure what we're going to do. If our schedules mesh, we might do a live in lieu of our weekly one, or it might get posted Sunday once I'm back home and I have access to my editing equipment stuff. So I'll let you know, but just be aware that next week is going to be a little bit funny. It's either going to be on Sunday or it's going to be alive at some point. So Anne and I'll have to work out. It depends on when my flights are and different things. So yeah, but thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week sometime for sure.
All right. Thank you. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, or do whatever.
Do whatever. Thanks for joining us.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.